Sunday. So, what an amazing event we had last night. How many of you were here at our Oktoberfest? Yeah. Wow, and you came this morning. That's amazing. A little tired, maybe. I'm looking at Linda. A big shout out to Linda Hirsch for coordinating it all. And Julia for the food. Yeah. Such a fun event, such a great time, and we don't have final numbers, but it looks like we raised around 50 grand, so it's awesome. So thank you to everybody that contributed in any way. It takes all of us, so appreciate it. So Friday was the Jewish New Year, Rosh Hashanah, and Rosh Hashanah commemorates the creation of the world. And it begins it's the first day of the 10 days of awe. I'd never heard of the 10 days of awe before, the days of awe. It's a time of reflection and renewal and atonement and introspective. And it ends with Yom Kippur, which is the Day of Atonement. I found it interesting that the Hebrew word for holiday actually translates as appointment. And it's a way of, in the Hebrew scriptures, over 150 times, God is inviting the Jewish people to connect with him, to remember that, hey, I'm here, God's saying, I'm here, remember me. Have me in your life. And in unity, we can think of it as an appointment with the divine within ourselves. That we have to take the time, we have to remember to take the time to set an appointment, if you will, remember to turn within. To take that time to look at our lives, to reflect, to look at what's been going on with us, what maybe needs to be released, what needs to be embraced. What messages are our emotions bringing to us? What do we need to learn? And so I love this time of year with the Jewish holidays because it's a good reminder for all of us to turn within. We need appointments, just like we need an appointment with our doctors or our dentists for checkups. We need to have a checkup with ourselves. Checkup. How are we doing? What's going on? And so it's a great time for this state of awe, the days of awe. Because awe is, according to Dasha Kettner, says awe is the feeling of being in the presence of something vast that transcends your understanding of the world. It's also an opportunity for us to rethink our previously held ideas and maybe see things a different way. It's a great time to start a 7-week fall program, which we are doing today. We're using the book Essential Spirituality. If you haven't gotten your book yet, we're going to be talking about this the next 7 weeks. We ran out of them, but we have more on order. They'll be in the bookstore this week. This is a great book by Roger Walsh. And we're going to be meeting, those of us who signed up, in small groups throughout the next 7 weeks during the week to discuss the reading assignment. It's a great way to awaken our hearts and our minds, to practice together in small groups. We need each other. What was that little video? It's safer to travel in groups. It's better to travel in groups. It's happier to travel in groups. It's more joyful to travel in groups, to be in small groups where we can witness for each other. He talks about in the introduction chapters, which are not part of your assigned reading, the perennial philosophy. meaning those things that keep showing up in all the world religions. And he uses 7 of the world religions he refers to many times. And we all have, of all the world religions, have similar practices, similar things that we need to work on in our lives as human beings to come into a place of our own divinity. They're practical ways, there's practices. So it's not just a book to just read it and put it down and say, oh, that was nice. No, there's practices in each of the sections that we can work on to really come into that more fully who we are as divine beings. And this first week is about transforming our motivation, looking at our cravings, looking at our attachments, and transforming them. It's not an easy thing to do. None of these are easy things to do. And in Buddhism, it says our attachments are what causes our suffering. It says on page 37, the amount of suffering in our lives reflects the gap between what we crave and what we have. You ever notice that? Those things that we want, we think they're out there. We have to get them from out there, not knowing that we have everything we need inside us, within us. We have everything we need. We just have to remember to turn within, to make that appointment with ourselves, that holy day. Anytime we turn within, it can be a holy day. 2 of the 10 commandments say, you shall not covet. Shall not covet. But there's something in us that craves things that we don't have. And usually it's because of a false sense of identity that we have. We don't see our true selves. We don't see ourselves as we truly are. And so we get attached to things to make up for that difference, because we think that will help us. That will compensate for what we lack. We don't lack anything. But we suffer because we think we do. And sometimes it can harm us greatly. It can have painful consequences. We have a service assistant today to share her story of her attachments. And I want to welcome up Brooke Lindquist here.
My biggest attachment for basically my whole life was to be as thin as I possibly could so I would be lovable. I honestly believed that I had to be skinny so that I would be loved. Now I'm left in a body that is evidence of that falsehood. I know it's not true. I know that love comes from within, that happiness is not found in food or in withholding food or in the number on a scale or in the hours of exercise I do. But that deeply ingrained belief was held onto so firmly by me for so many years that it so captured my behavior patterns that I'm still a bit stuck. And it's scary. I thought that to be happy, I had to be skinny. In college, I was very, very, very overweight. And at the University of California at Santa Barbara, the land of the pretty people, that does not go over well. I was ignored, looked through, called a fat F word, B word, avoided. I was miserable. My self-esteem was about a negative 50 gajillion. I was sure that if only I were skinny, I would be accepted and have lots of friends. I'd be happy, I'd be loved. Do you have anything like that? Any, if only I were this, or if only I had that? Any of those negative motivations or negative attachments that Roger Walsh talks about in Essential Spirituality? They're lies. I started running after college to lose weight, and I lost weight. And then I lost more and more, and I became a really talented and really serious and competitive runner. And I got all these compliments on my appearance and on my success. And all of a sudden, I felt like I was loved. And I craved it. I had spent so much time in the ick that I thought, this must be happiness. But you guys, I was empty. I had no connection to my inner self, or to love, or to spirit, or to anything. It was all about my body. It got out of hand, way out of hand. The drive to control my weight, my attachment to my thinness, it led to inpatient treatments, several. It led to hospitalizations, time in the ICU, being tube fed, 10 years of estrangement from my brother and my niece and my nephew, isolation. I exercised for hours and hours and hours, running on fumes. Was this happiness? I punished myself for every single morsel of food that I put in my mouth. Was this a way to find enlightenment? To fill my soul with the joy and the freedom and the love and the spirit that now I find, having found Columbine, having experienced connection with spirit and with a higher purpose that I have now, that I know what it's like to let love in from people that love me, from others, the love that has always been available to me? No, that is not what that was about. I was at the depths of despair. I was miserable. I was suicidal. I was desperate, starving. And still, at the inpatient treatment centers, I threw away food behind the counselor's back. At the hospital, when I was being tube fed and they disconnected the tubes and made me start to eat again, I threw away food. I always got caught. I knew my parents, my dad especially, loved me so much, but I couldn't let it in. My self-loathing was just out of control. It's like everything just bounced off of me. It wasn't until I found Columbine, and I found you, and I found this community that I learned it. I got it. Spirit and I are one, and I am love. And I am loved. I am not my body, and my body is not me. True happiness comes from connecting with others, from the self, with the divine, with non-attachment, and with letting go. I'm learning who I am as on the inside, as a divine being. I'd been stuck in this cycle of self-hatred and self-destruction and negative thought patterns about myself and my body for 35 years, and now I got it. Now I had the key to happiness. Thank you. It's a relatively new place to be, and I literally feel like a kid in a candy store. I can't stop smiling. But like I say, I'm often stuck in those patterns of self-destruction because I've been in that pattern for so long. So I'm struggling to just, boom, turn it around. But I'm working on it. And I have to have patience with myself. And I ask you to have some patience with me. I am on the cusp of something so amazing. I just am about to start on the spiritual direction program that Sue just finished. I am working with a health coach who is helping me make amazing choices of my food and my body and my health. And I have released the past. I really have. I know that happiness and fulfillment come in spirit and in my family and in my friendships. I know true love, and I know I really, really, really love you. So thank you.
I don't know if I can speak after that. Brooke, that was amazing, amazing, amazing story. Very powerful. Powerful story about craving, about attachment, how we get attached to our beliefs and what we think about ourselves, and how harmful it can be when we identify with a false self. We all do it to some extent. And then we wonder why we're not happy. There's an old Indian tale of how to catch a monkey. Put a few nuts in a jar with a small opening, and the monkey will put its hand in that jar to grab the nuts. But when you have a fist, when the monkey has a fist holding on to the nuts, it can't get out of the jar. Our attachments are like that. If we would just open our palm and let them go, we could get our hand out. We could get our hand out of the jar. And there's freedom in that. There's liberation in that. But we're so attached, we won't let go. We refuse to let go of those things. You might want to ask yourself, what am I holding on to? What am I unwilling to let go of? What emotions am I willing to let go of? What beliefs about myself? My need to be right? My need to look a certain way? Jesus says in the gospel according to Matthew chapter 6, verse 33, seek first the kingdom of God, and then all these other things will be given to you. Seek first, that means go within, turn within. You know those signs when there's a house for sale and they sometimes put on top or they put it online, must see inside? We must see inside us. We must see inside and see the goodness that is within us, within each one of us. But so often, we just look at the surface. We don't go inside. We're still holding on to those nuts in the jar. On page 42, Roger Walsh talks about exercises to help us become aware of and reduce our cravings. Those cravings where we have to be right, or we look good, or we look youthful. Okay, I have that one. So I want to walk through these 4 that he talks about and use an example from my life. And it can seem kind of silly, but we do this in our lives. The first exercise, or the first, exercise, is to recognize pain as feedback. Pain in our lives is telling us something's not right. Pain in our lives is saying, there's a message for us here. Now, when we were in Germany, Kevin and I were in Germany last May, I found out that Birkenstocks were made in Germany. And everybody was wearing Birkenstocks. And I had to have a pair of Birkenstocks. I had to. Everybody's wearing them. I had to have a pair of Birkenstocks. So when we got home, the stores were all closed whenever our shopping days were. Somebody was inspiring against me or something, conspiring against me, I think. But I just felt this indulgent need to have a pair of Birkenstocks. And so I ordered them when we got home, and they were uncomfortable. So I sent them back. And I ordered another pair, and they were uncomfortable, and I sent them back. But that pain was in this needing to have something that I thought was going to make me look more youthful or make me look younger. And then I saw the Barbie movie. Everybody see the Barbie movie? And she is wearing Birkenstocks at the end of the movie. I had given up on the Birkenstocks, but that brought my whole craving right back. Barbie has Birkenstocks. I got to have some Birkenstocks, and I really like the pink ones. So the second exercise is to examine the experience of craving. And that was my experience. I was seeing them. Once you start, it's like a car, like you want a new car, and you start seeing that car everywhere. Well, I was seeing Birkenstocks everywhere. Everywhere. Everybody was wearing Birkenstocks and Pilates. Everybody's wearing Birkenstocks, walking around Sloan's Lake. They're wearing Birkenstocks. I'm like, I have to have Birkenstocks. And so I started my shopping experience again. It's ridiculous, right? But we do this with our cravings. We do this with our attachments. We have to have it. Like, everybody's got it. I have to have it. Then the next one he says is reflect on the cost of the craving. How much time and effort I put into finding a pair of Birkenstocks that were comfortable, that fit me, that I thought were cute. It's ridiculous. I could have been doing so much more with my time. But I was shopping for Birkenstocks. I'm making a joke out of something, but we do this in our lives on so many different levels with so many different things. I bought 4 different pairs of Birkenstocks. Now I have a pair that I like, and they're blue, and they're cute. But how much time I spent on that? Then the fourth exercise is recognizing the underlying thoughts and beliefs. So underlying all that, for me, was the need to fit in. The need to feel like I belong to the Birkenstock group or something, I belong. I have Birkenstocks now. Aren't I cool? I wanted to be seen as like Barbie and stylish and youthful. But this is what our attachments do to us. It's silly when you think about it. But are Birkenstocks really making me feel better about myself? No. Are they really making me look younger? No. We need to accept our true selves, accept ourselves as we are. And no thing out there is going to make us feel better. In the long run, it's not. Because it all comes from within. Happiness comes from within. Birkenstocks are not going to solve your problems. But the more we turn within, the more we allow ourselves to come inside, must see inside, the more we can love ourselves, the more we can then love others, because we're loving from this overflowing sense of love that's within us instead of from a deficiency. Instead of from a sense that I don't have Birkenstocks and I'm not going to be accepted now. Said, I love myself. I don't even need those. I don't even need those sandals. Must see inside. The more we turn within, the more we learn what makes us tick, why we have the emotions we have, why we have the beliefs we have, why we have the attitudes, the reactivity that we have. It helps us learn more about ourselves. Learn more about what those attachments, where are those attachments really coming from? And are they still relevant? Are they relevant? We must see inside. Then we can take ourselves out into the world with more compassion for ourselves and more compassion for each other. And that's what the Dalai Lama talks about in the foreword of the book. It's all about compassion. Charles Fillmore says, honest self-observation is the first step on a spiritual path. Be honest about what you're seeing. And if you don't like it, transform it. Change it. We all have that ability to do that. But we must see inside. The key is to know ourselves. That part of ourselves that's loving and compassionate, that knows we have enough, that we are enough. We are less happy as a society, even though we're a lot more comfortable than we were 30 years ago. We're a lot less happy. The Good Life is a book by Robert Waldinger and Mark Schultz, and it's based on a decades-long study by Harvard Study of Adult Development that began in 1938. And in 1938, they started questioning people, different walks of life that were in different economical situations, and they ended up with 3 generations of people, more than 1,300 of the descendants of the original 724 participants. And they've been doing this, they're still doing it. They're still studying happiness, what makes people happy. And they would send a questionnaire to everybody once a year and then check in with them in person every 2 years. How did they change? How do they look? Do they look happy? Do they look healthy? And the number one takeaway that they've had from this study is that it's relationships, good relationships, healthy relationships that make us the happiest. And we don't have those good relationships unless we ourselves are in a good place, unless we ourselves know who we are. We get control over our emotions. We get control over our reactivity. We learn how to respond. We learn how to love ourselves. We learn how to have compassion. It says in The Good Life, page 276, asking honest questions about ourselves is the first step toward recognizing that we may not be experts on our own lives. When we accept this and we accept that we may not have all the answers, we step into the realm of possibility. And that's a step in the right direction. You see, when our hands are in that jar, holding on to those nuts, there's no possibilities. It's only when we allow ourselves to loosen those attachments, loosen those cravings, examine them. Where are they coming from? And then allow ourselves to transform it, to shift it, to look at it from a different perspective, different eyes. And that's a step towards releasing those cravings. Remember, it's a practice. So you're encouraged to practice these next 7 weeks with these exercises in the book. If you're not in a group, we still have space. If you don't want to be in a group, that's okay. We publish the questions every Thursday in our Thursday email update. You can just do it on your own, but practice it. Make an appointment with the divine within. There's some great meditations also in this first section to help you transform the motivation. One is you're looking at time from a longer time period. Expand the time, and then expand it some more, and then expand it some more. And when you're looking at eternity, our little craving about Birkenstocks is really not all that important in the overall scheme of things. Or if we want to meditate on our future self, how do you want to show up? Who do you want to be 10 years from now, 30 years from now? 5 years from now, who do you want to be? How do you want to show up? what can you do today to start that process? Move in that direction. There's an invitation. And then he also talks about dedicating an activity to some other higher goal. Yesterday, in my personal prayer time, I knew we had this fundraiser last night, and of course, we wanted to raise money. Of course we wanted to raise money. That's why we're having a fundraiser. And it was fun. But I dedicated the Oktoberfest to all those people who will cross that threshold into this building, into this space, into this community for the next 30 years. That they find a place of belonging, they find a place of connection. And it shifted my view on the fundraiser last night. It's about the sustainability of this community and what it represents, and what it can do for people, and what it can do for future generations. We've been here 30 years in November. We want to be here another 30 to change lives, to wake people up, to allow them to grow in spiritual awareness. That's what we're here for. And to connect with each other. Because most of us, a lot of us, are lonely. And so this is a place where you can make connections, where you can practice showing up who you came here to be. Then we can not only discover our bliss, but express our bliss. Roger Wall says on page 5, within ourselves we find our deepest self, our true self, and recognize that we are not only more than we imagine, but we are more than we can imagine. We see that we are a creation of the sacred, intimately and eternally linked to the sacred and forever graced and embraced by the sacred. This is the greatest of all discoveries, the secret of all secrets, the priceless gift that is both the source and the goal of the great religions. This is the aim of all our seeking, the answer to a lifetime of longing, the cause of the mystic's bliss, the source of overwhelming and enduring joy. This is what we are here for in this human body, to unfold, to experience, to be. That's what I want for all of you, for all of us. So you must see inside. Namaste. Peace.